everyone, and welcome to Tal Talks. This is our second edition for our Steampunk September. I am here with the performer who is probably the most magical that I have ever met, Mike OJ. Hi.
Hi there. Thank you for having me.
Yay. I have a lot of fun questions and things. I'm trying to think about when we first met. I think you came to the very first Market of the Moons, like the very original.
I did. Yeah. That was my first. I'll talk about that a little later. That was the first paid gig I did in Magic.
But yeah, so Mike OJ actually came to our very first Mark of the Moons before we knew what we were doing, and was very helpful and did some really awesome shows that helped a lot. Very nice of you to come and do that for us.
Well, thank you for having me. I love going to Mass Rent.
Yeah,
it's a good fair.
Yeah, we're growing and we're trying to just keep getting bigger and bigger, and hence this whole Patreon thing, trying to keep the fair alive and keep it getting bigger and
the times of the plague and the apocalypse. Yeah,
I mean,
doing our best to truck through.
Perfect for the time period that a lot of fairs go to. Ours doesn't really have a time period. Ours is more magical. All right, so describe what you do. What is your thing? Why do we have you on here?
Sure. So I am a magician, which means it's my job to baffle, stupefy, amaze people, mostly through sleight of hand. Magic has one of those arts that's been around, like when people talk about Renaissance fairs, it's one of the art forms that has existed in the Renaissance. It has such a weird and colorful history of years and years of performers trying to perfect their craft. First magic book, if people don't know, was published in 1594 by Lord Reginald Scott. It's called Discoveries in Witchcraft. Nice. And 2/3 of the book was about how witches are evil and we need to get rid of them. And the last third of the book so witches would come up and be like, we're these magical sorcerers and our job is to really take your powers. And the other half of the book was, yeah, but if witches were fake, I'm pretty sure they are, so they would do the tricks. They would have things like they can take a coin, they can place it in their hand, they can make it vanish, and the book would explain how it did that. So what it uneventfully became was the world's first magic book. That's when the first time we get magic on this upswing is this one guy who was just really Christian, really hated witches, published how they did all their stuff.
Oh boy. Yeah, that hits close to home. I had my family history, we had a family member way back that was actually hung as a witch in Boston.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Well, my art form came from that, so.
That's all right.
Yeah, we perform shows. We try. My job is to just honestly, magic is all about making people smile. People think it's like I'm trying to fool you. It's really an entertainment art, like all the other ones. There's that added mystery to it. And it's been around for hundreds of years, and it's so cool to be a part of that magic history, especially performing at fairs. That's kind of what I do.
So this is for our Steampunk September, one of our monthly themes. And I'm just wondering, you've done a bunch of steampunk events. I've seen that you've done a lot of them, and you're doing one soon too, I think, besides ours, of course. And I was just wondering, how do you interpret what steampunk is? Because there's so many different, aspects to it. And how do you incorporate that into your act?
Sure. So I've been kind of into steampunk since I was like 15, when I went to my first convention and saw the outfit, and I was like, I don't know what that is, but I want everything to do with it. And I bought a nice steampunk jacket, so I was like a 15-year-old walking around with it. I loved it. And to me, steampunk is it's that era of anything is possible. It's the era when there is such creative designs, where there is it has sort of a fantasy aspect to it when you come to think of it. Like, this person has built wings so they can fly. It's like, I'm not sure that's how science works, but it totally could be how it works with the power. So when I do my steampunk shows, I'll do a lot more magic that would have existed in that era in particular, and my stories will tend to change to more of the medieval aspects, to more of the high Victorian aspects. In the Victorian era, magic became, in the medieval ages, magic was if someone was doing card tricks and was moving a deck of cards around like this, odds are they were trying to rob you. This wasn't a lie. They were probably trying to rob you. One magician comes around and he changes everything and he goes, "This should be a stage art." And he was a French magician. His name was Jean-Robert Houdin. Fantastic performer. The Houdin might sound familiar to you. It might sound like Houdini to you because Houdini
That's how I got his name.
stole his name from Dan.
Nice.
And so that's when magic becomes real stage arts. The first time we get magicians who are full-time performers, like the movie The Prestige, that's more about the era. Like it's being magicians being like, I'm keeping my secrets covered up and I'm not going to let anyone else know. And we're going to have like these backstabbing fights and I'm going to send spies to steal from you. And when I do my acts, I use a lot more. I get to show my very fancy stuff off because I get to bring out my very nice cups and ball routines. I get to bring out my like very cool Victorian props, and that's my favorite part of performing in steampunk fairs.
The props.
I get to like walk. I get to wear a lot. I get to wear these fancy tailcoats and then do that, and I love that.
That's awesome. I gotta see one of your steampunk shows. I haven't seen it yet. So moving on to the next question. How long have you been a magician and what got you into this line of work?
Sure. I learned magic when I was younger. I learned magic when I was like 10 years old and I hated it. I absolutely
wow.
hated it. I didn't like the idea of practicing or I didn't like how my mom bought me a magic kit,
Yeah, every kid gets that, yeah.
And the plastic ball breaks, so you lose one of the little routines, and it's like, I can't do this trick anymore. It's gone forever.
We had one with like a fake thumb.
Oh, there's a fake, the fake thumb. To let you in a secret, I have used a fake thumb in my shows today. And if you've seen my show, you probably have seen it. And I've done some really cool stuff with it. So believe it or not, that's still around in magic today, and we use it to great effects. What it's used for, I'm not going to tell you, but I guarantee you've seen tricks. And if you don't think I've used one, I mean to get the trick right.
Well, yeah, I haven't seen your fake thumb. It looked ridiculous on me as a kid. I don't have very large hands and they're very pale. So when you get this like big giant tan thumb, like it's the most obvious ridiculous thing.
That goes into some of like magic theory. It's like unveiling the curtain just a little bit. The fake thumb can be used for a lot of things. Probably in the magic is like stuffing something inside of it.
Yeah, that was what it was, like a scarf that you would put in.
Yeah, that's exactly what that trick was used for.
Yeah.
And when you're the performer, it was one of the things I had to get over as a magician is I was like, no one will buy this. And I had a magician perform a trick for me. And he was a very pale guy and did it with a black thumb. It's like pitch black. I did not see it. He was so good at moving and so good at distracting people. I was like, you've convinced me this trick works. So I started magic when I was young and I wanted to be a performer. I was like, I could do a whole bunch of performance stuff. And I learned a couple tricks. And then I threw it by the wayside. Like most kids do with a magic kit, to go, I don't like this. Over there. When I was 14, though, I was on a cruise ship with my parents, and there was a magician there. And he didn't dress like a suit and tie like I was expecting. He wore like a leather jacket and wore like a dress shirt underneath, looked very cool. And he did a show, and I was in the audience going like, this is the coolest thing ever. And he was selling a deck of cards. And the deck of cards was a fake deck of cards.
Oh, nice.
What it was essentially was you could take a deck and you could like riffle down it like this, and half the cards were the same card. Okay, so no matter where they say stop, you're gonna pick the card. I think mine was like the 4 of diamonds. So they would say stop, and out of nowhere, the 4 of diamonds would do that. Let's say it was like the 7 of diamonds. No matter what it would be, they say stop, just say stop, doesn't matter.
Stop.
Right there, and you 7 of diamonds pops up right there. And so you could do that with a normal deck. You could do that with a fake deck. The deck was $35. I remember that because my parents were complaining about it. That is overpriced. Very overpriced.
It's a cruise ship.
I performed that trick a lot. And then every time we perform, people would be like, it's the 4 of diamonds, isn't it? And I'd be like, something wrong here. Can I do this with a real deck? And I learned how to do it with a real deck of cards. And so that was me learning magic. I kind of taught myself, like, I want to do this. Then he vanished something. I went, okay, how did he make that vanish? Okay, I think I figured it out. And I did it. And I figured it out. Then it wasn't until later I started meeting other magicians who showed me like you have to start reading books. I didn't like reading as a kid. I don't think a lot of kids love reading. I super didn't. But we got a book. There was two. There was Mark Wilson's Complete Course in Magic, which is like if you're a young magician, that's the book. That's your holy grail. The other one was Tarbell's Course in Magic, really old, like very, very old magic text. And every trick probably ever made is probably developed from one of those two books. And I started learning these tricks, and I became a self-taught magician. This is before I realized that you could learn magic on like YouTube. And I was like, I had all my books out, and it taught you how to be a better performer. So that's how I got into magic, and I would do magic all the time. It wasn't until I went to study abroad in Ireland when I started doing paid shows. I did my first paid show was at a chili shop. Admission was $5. Remember that. You could show up, and two people came. I remember that.
Nice.
Two people showed up, and everything. So two people came that I didn't know. Like 10 people came, who were all like my friends from school.
Yeah, I've had gigs like that. I've had gigs where there's only been two people.
Only been two people. It happens, and you're just like, well, I guess we're doing this today.
More people in the band than outside. All right, that's fine.
And you play to those two people, and you have a good show. And I was like, most people get discouraged. I was like, that was great. Someone paid money to see me, and that was this weird, eye-opening experience. And actually, your show was the one you contacted me when I was in Ireland, and you said like, send me a video. I think I sent you like an hour and a half long video of stuff. I think you wanted like a 5-minute thing, but I was like,
yeah,
you probably wanted a 5. I didn't know that, so I performed. I got my friends together. I'm like, we're gonna perform an hour and a half long show of like everything I can do. And I think you responded like, okay, that's fine. We'll pay you. I'm like, you're willing to pay me? Oh my goodness. If you just said, I will give you like $10 and like a meal, I'd probably been like, yeah, I'm not mad.
yeah. I didn't watch the whole thing.
At this point, I was like, I didn't expect you to. But I was like, I don't know I'll include like an entire bio because I was like,
I showed my husband. I remember I was like, look how long this is, and he was like, oh, let's watch some of it. And then we were like skipping through, and he's like, this guy's really funny.
But yeah, that was, and then Mark and the Moons was the first Ren Fair I performed, and that just kind of spiraled into doing other shows.
That's awesome. That's great. So you were talking a little bit about it, but I don't think people realize how much work goes into being a magician. I think it's nice that they think that it's real magic, and I'm sure I don't want to, ruin it for anyone.
Sure.
Maybe there is some real magic, but there's a lot of work put into the craft in general. And I'm just wondering what you think is more important, or maybe you think they're both just as important, the work you put in or the gift of the gab, the talk that distracts and dazzles.
Sure. That's such an interesting. Honestly, they are both very important, and it's not so much we call the word we use is patter, which I'm sure you guys use in your in music.
No.
Oh no, you don't, like when you talk to the audience. You don't call that. Okay, great.
No.
It's just us. All right, got it.
Yeah.
So we call it patter. When we're doing a show, you'll see a trick. And magicians, you'll see, if you watch a lot of magic, you'll see a lot of them kind of do similar tricks. But the magician does them differently by the way he talks. So we call this patter. That's so important. Now, practicing a trick, I will only perform a trick when I am like very practiced in it. My eye-opening experience of that was I was with a magician, and I was like, I learned this new trick. I want to put in my show. And he went, okay, that's nice. How long have you been practicing? I went, 3 weeks. And he goes, I don't put a trick into my show unless I practice it for a year. And I was like,
wow.
And to me, this was like, a year? What are you going to do in a year? And now I know, like, no, you need that time. So the practice and it's all about constantly practicing. Like, people who know me, that I always have a deck of cards somewhere in my hands. I do it to fidget now, but always to practice those routines. I remember when I was learning magic, I would go up to my mom and be like, hey, Mom, here's a trick. Did you see it? And she's like, no. Okay, great. I'm going to show it to you again. Tell me if you see it. And I would do this constantly to people. Did that look good? Did that sound good? And then the trick, the actual what you say to people matters. Now, the patter isn't necessarily meant to distract you. It can. It most certainly can be used to distract you. I can like, look over there, and you might look over there. But it's more to actually entertain, right? And that's the biggest thing. Magicians are entertainers.
Yeah.
So knowing how to have like a persona that's not a doornail is very important. I've seen some amazing magicians perform tricks, and I go, oh, I couldn't do that, but I wasn't entertained by it. Some
Yeah.
magicians kind of do like you probably see when everyone's starting off to do this one trick. I need you to pick a card.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Six of hearts. You necessarily don't know how it's done, but it's like, wow, okay. But you weren't necessarily like that's something I would pay to see. So they
Yeah.
both magicians are all about the practice and all about the stage presence. There was a very famous magician. Um, his name was Vernon. Di Vernon, one of the most beloved magicians all in the history of magic. And he always said, a magician is an actor pretending to be a magician. And those words stuck with me because we're putting on a show, first and foremost. We just happen to be pretending to be wizards, which is A-okay with me. But yes, both of them, super important. And every magician you talk to will probably say they are both equally as important.
So, we are almost done. I have really enjoyed talking to you. I want to know if there's anything that people should know before they go to one of your shows, before they see your shows, anything that they should be, have in their mind that they should know ahead of time.
Sure. Biggest thing is just show up and have a good time. Honestly, just show up and enjoy the ride. If you want to come up on stage, raise your hand. I'll call you up on stage. And the best way for me to pick you on stage is just if you come to me before and be like, can I go on stage with you? I'll go, yeah. And I will be like, I need a random volunteer. That person who asked me ahead of time. Come up on stage. But I'm also doing a lot of, if you go to my Facebook page, which is Michael OJ, just ONJ Magician, the Facebook page, I'm doing Zoom shows for anybody who wants it. Feel free to send me a message. If you just press message, I respond to all my messages. So you can happily book a Zoom show if you are so inclined. We do mentalist shows, we do card shows, I even do some lessons. If you're interested in lessons, feel free to do that as well. I'm also doing the pre-recorded show for you guys, right? On the 26th.
It's going to be on the coming this Saturday. They can see it at 5 o'clock. But I'm not done with you yet because I am making everyone who comes on do a tongue twister. This is Marv's tongue twister challenge. Yes, I did do this to Carnival. So if you open the chat, you will see a tongue twister that I just put in there.
Okay.
And I want you to do your best to say it as quickly as you possibly can.
As quickly as I possibly can? All right, this is going to go terrible. Let's do it. Merlin mail a million marvelous marbles to Map for Map's million marvelous marbles market.
I think that was pretty good.
I think it was like satisfactory. I think I got like a solid C+ on that one.
Yeah, I think that was good. Does it need to be harder? What do you think?
Sure, a little bit, maybe a little bit harder.
A couple more things going on, or maybe another sentence or something. Yeah, it seems like people are getting it. I don't know. All right, yeah. So,
well, if it's just me and Carnival, we're both very, very talented. So, I mean, that just could be us.
So, thank you so much for talking with us and being here. Yes, you are going to be on this Saturday, the 26th, at 5 o'clock. People will see your video of your. Are you going to do some steampunk stuff?
I am.
Oh, that's exciting! So we get to see the cool props that you talked about.
Absolutely. Oh, I'm going to bring out all the cool steampunk stuff. It should be a fun show.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
This has been the second edition ever of Tal Talks. And this has been Mike OJ. I hope that you guys will get to see his show and go see him live because he's really fun to watch.
Thank you so much.
Bye, everyone.
Worst trick I ever had go wrong. I was performing for a big blockbuster LARP, which is like a LARP where there's hundreds of people there, and I was the featured performer. And I was doing a show, and I ended with my straitjacket escape. It was a very great trick. And I'm on stage with my straitjacket escape, and I'm tied up on stage. And there's a way I'm supposed to be tied up in a straight. It's not a trick straitjacket. They really do tie me up. Although I cannot escape if you start putting loops in other loops and tying those loops together and then taking another piece of rope that I did not introduce, tying it around loops without my knowledge. And I'm on stage and I'm like, oh, they're spending a long time. I'm in it. And I remember going, all right, guys, we'll start the timer for 2 minutes. And I went like this, and I felt no slack. And I was